think we have everyone in. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to our fourth, which happens to be our last panel session as part of this summer's mentoring program. I think it's important to remind ourselves of the purpose of mentoring program is to support and develop young Bahrainis. I'm a huge believer in the importance of mentoring instead of trying to figure out everything by yourself. You should have someone, the right person, to show you the way, to push you to be the best version of yourself. And so with that in mind, I'm very excited about today's session. Today we have CPISPAA alumni from Group 1 all the way to Group 12. So our panel speakers have between 3 and 15 years of experience in their industry. And we are so lucky today to have individuals from a variety of industries, as we will see. What they all have in common is that they all have master's degrees, but they also all want to help you guys. And that's why they're here to share their experience with us. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I will be the moderator of the session. My name is Ahmed Bardouli. I've graduated from Isa Town Secondary School here in Bahrain. And then I went on and to study at Tabor Academy. And then at Tufts University, I got my bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering. And right now I work as a process engineer with POPCO. I just want to remind our audience of the guidelines for today's session. So if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box. You can type it so that everyone can see, or if you can send it to me or anyone in the panel speakers or the chat moderator for you to be anonymous. Please make sure that whatever question you're asking, direct it towards one of the panel speakers so we can avoid any confusion. If you feel that you can better ask the question with your own voice, please raise your hand by clicking on the button next to using Zoom, and we will ask you to unmute yourself and then ask your question. Keep in mind that this session is being recorded just so that the people that couldn't attend this session can still benefit from the information we share here. And please keep yourself muted throughout the session unless you have questions to ask. So our first panel speaker, I would like to welcome Hussein Saad. Hussein, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hussein, if you can share with us a little bit about where you studied in Bahrain, which school, and then what you studied in college, and what was your journey in your career so far?
So I went to Naim School, graduated in 2000, and got the scholarship. Went to Dulwich College, did my A-levels for 2 years. Went to the University of Cambridge, studied computer science for 3 years. Then went to Imperial College London, did a master's degree in computing. After that, I joined Goldman Sachs in their technology division. Spent 5 years in there as a programmer. And then I joined BlackRock, the alpha generation team. So that's quantitative investment, and spent 8 years with BlackRock. And last year, I joined GFH in Bahrain as a treasurer.
It's a long journey. We're really looking forward to learn more about it. And our second panelist, Iman. Iman, thank you for taking the time being with us.
Hi, everyone. Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Iman Sabah. I graduated from Manama Secondary School. I didn't go to boarding school. I went straight to university, and I did a civil engineering degree in Purdue with a focus on structural engineering. I worked as structural engineer for a little bit and then moved into project management, specifically on mega projects. The one that you might recognize is in Medina Shamalia. I worked on that. And then I decided to move away from engineering into a different field. So I did my MBA at NYU and then moved into consulting. I've been in McKinsey for the last 3 years.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Next, Mahmoud Abdallah. Mahmoud, thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Ahmed. I'll tell you a bit about myself. I started at Sheikh Abdul Aziz School. That's where I graduated. After that, I was a Ilmi, by the way, there. And then I graduated, went to Lawrenceville boarding school, did 2 years there, focused a bit on math, economic, physics subjects. And then I did my bachelor's, stayed in the US, did it in California, University of Southern California, in economics and math. Came back to Bahrain, worked a little bit at the EDB, the Economic Development Board, working on economic analysis papers, quarterly development reports, and working with different government agencies. After that, I joined the IISS, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, working on more opinion pieces. Following that, I joined the FDPM's office, the First Deputy Prime Minister's office, working on government projects. And during that time, I went and took my master's at Warwick. I spent a year there in the UK, took my master's, came back. And then I joined our Capita investment firm, and that's where I am right now.
MashaAllah, a lot of experiences in different places. And our fourth panel speaker, Ilham Ali. Ilham, thank you for waking up so early in California and being with us.
Thank you. My name is Ilham Ali, and my journey, I actually went to 3 high schools. So the first one was Al-Ahd al-Zahar secondary school, and then I did another year as part of an exchange year in Wisconsin. And then my third high school was a boarding school in Connecticut, the Loomis Chaffee School, for 1 year. And then I moved to California and did my college years there in international relations with Claremont McKenna College. Is a very small school. And I worked in Bahrain for a year for international development and relations at AmCham Bahrain. And then I did my master's in public health in New York. And I focused a lot on mental health, HIV, and substance use disorders to help with addiction. And right now I have my own company based in Los Angeles. I live here with my husband and my 2 cats, and I provide services in project management and also public health. And I work right now in COVID-19 campaigns in California.
Thank you, Ilham. And last but not least, Saeed Al-Rahma. Saeed is actually a very close friend of mine. We both got the scholarship in the same group. Saeed, welcome.
Thanks, Ahmed. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, about 10 years ago, I was in your shoes, candidate in the scholarship and a student in Asaid Town School. Since then, I was lucky to get the scholarship, went to the US to do my boarding school in New Jersey, in a school named Hunt School. There, I kind of discovered my passion for computer engineering, where I majored in electrical and computer engineering at Duke University, also in the US. Did both my bachelor's and my master's in 5 years. And from there, so that was on the East Coast, I moved to the West Coast, to California, to start working with a very early stage small startup in robotics. And 2 years later, which is the beginning of this year, I moved to Google and have been there for what's now about 7 months.
Awesome, and we look forward to learning more about that. So today, the way I've structured this panel is that we'll start talking about how you guys went through the process of selecting which field of work you want to work in. And then we'll talk about working in Bahrain and abroad, what are the benefits and disadvantages of both. And then we'll end up with a just general advice for the audience. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Mahmoud, I wanted to ask you, you studied economics in college and now you work in that field. Could you talk about your journey and how you decided the field of work for your career?
So أنا متخرجت من الشيخ عبد العزيز and وقبل ما أتخرج يعني the last couple of years I knew that I liked math and I was good at it, getting good grades, enjoying the problems and all of that. So I thought I would enter something in that field. My initial understanding is that with that kind of background, it's good to enter something like computer science. So that's something I was passionate about, I was interested in. I was doing a little bit of programming on the side, writing code, that kind of stuff. But it was very, beginner level kind of experience. I got the scholarship. I went to the US, did boarding school. And one of the requirements during that time is to do a summer program at the university. You go, you choose a course, you take part in it, and then you do the exam at the end. So at that time, I thought I was heading to that direction. So I took a programming course. And I realized I wasn't that good at it when compared to other people who are professionally and academically interested and think of a career in it. So I had a good beginner level experience, but I really wasn't that good to pursue it as a career. And I didn't enjoy it that much when it's not really small projects, when it becomes a full academic course. So I started to look at other fields. One of the fields that I looked into was economics. And I had a course in my boarding school to do economics. And I liked the topic. At that time, I was a bit afraid of the practicality of it. If you study economics, it's not always clear what an economist does, what kind of companies or organization he works in, what's his contribution. It's not as clear-cut as maybe, for example, an engineer or an accountant. So I started to ask people with an economics degree what they do, how do they like it, what kind of opportunities are out there. And I liked it enough in terms of a academic field. I'm interested in reading about it, and in terms of the practical part of it. And maybe throughout the panel, I'll have a chance to talk a bit more specifically about what I do, but not to take too much time right now. I found out that there's a lot of things you can do with economics. Right now I'm working, for example, in investment analysis. I worked in government projects, government strategies. You can work on writing your own opinion pieces, presenting, doing specific small-scale consulting work to companies that want to understand the economic landscape of a new market they're entering. So the general thing I want to get out of these few minutes is that it really takes a lot of research to understand what each field does and what kind of skills you need, and do you really like it as a career or as a hobby on the side.
Yeah, Mahmoud, I think that's exactly, you touched the right point. How do I know if economics is the right major for me? Like you said, you talk to people. So actually, I wanted to ask Ilham about when you decided your field of major in public health, did you do any research on what opportunities are available in Bahrain or abroad? Or did you do any internships that helped you realize what you wanted to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have looked for both in Bahrain and in the Khalij in general, and also in the United States. And I found that most of the opportunities related to public health, especially mental health, was abundant in the United States. So I did a lot of my internship actually abroad because I focused on global health. So I worked in India, my internships. For those of you who don't know what an internship is, it's basically a period of time that has a start and an end date, and it's usually during the summer for 3 to 4 months. And then you get to work for a company and get a lot of experience. You're not a full-time employee, but just an experience. So I worked in India, Kenya, and Uganda to help a lot of poor and disadvantaged population be able to get empowered in terms of getting access to healthcare in their areas. And I was able to partner with a lot of universities like Harvard universities, Columbia, in order to deliver those services. And so my major, both in my undergraduate, which is international relations with a focus in global health, and also my master's in public health, have really opened my eyes into how I can make a difference in the world, but also become an agent for change, because that was my entire focus, my entire career, was to develop a career that's aimed to improve humanity from the day that I started getting into this field. So I chose very strategically the types of internship that will help me develop skills, both in practical technical skills, which is project management, strategic planning, and also healthcare planning for programs, and also soft skills, which is being able to talk to various types of people around the world from very different backgrounds, different languages. So the major that I chose actually positioned me right now to get to where I am, which is starting my own consultancy. And I'll be answering those questions I see in the chat during the section that we have on working in Bahrain and abroad.
Yeah, thank you, Ilham. That's actually a very inspirational story, and I think we want to hear more about it. I want to ask Saeed about what can students take advantage of during their college education in order to make sure they're prepared for the corporate or work life in terms of classes, and we just talked about internships, personal projects that they do. Your role at Google right now is a good combination between the skills you learn from your computer science classes, which is the coding part, and then you have the electrical engineering part for the hardware when you're working on the devices in Google. So was that thought of from college that you wanted to do something like that, or is it just a natural extension of what you enjoy doing in college?
Yeah, thanks, Ahmed. Good question. To start with the first part about how to take advantage of your time in college to prepare for work, you would discover very quickly, at least in your first or second year at work, probably in the very first few months, even in your internship maybe, is that what you do at work is really very different than what you do in college. And in some fields, what you do in college can actually be very aligned with what you do in work, and in other fields it's a little bit different or very vastly different. For myself, I did engineering, I did computer engineering, and while the foundation behind it is the same, like you have to know how to code and you have to know how computers work, but what really stood out for me or on my resume when I applied for jobs was actually the projects that I did outside of my major or my classes. Like if you look at even my new grad resume, I probably had 2 lines that listed some of the relevant classes, and the rest of it is all just projects that I have done outside of work. I see a question give an example of a project. For example, I was part of a club called the Formula SAE at Duke, and what they do is they build a Formula-like car, like if you think of a Formula 1 car, but about half the size of it. You still sit on it, a human sits on it and drives it, so it's still big enough, but on a smaller scale than the Formula 1, obviously, slower speed and all of that. There's a lot of mechanical engineering that goes with it, but we were a big team, and my kind of role focus there was more towards the electrical engineering and computer engineering of how to get speed, how to get sensors to work as expected to make sure the car is functioning properly, to tune anything in the engine or the car that you need to do. This is like a big project that I've done, but I've done a lot of smaller projects of making things like an Atari game, like from a board that the school provided, to 3D printing a few parts, to making a Fitbit-like device. Was more of a box that you carry on your waist.
So yeah,
so like
these projects, Saeed, they help you not only develop the skills outside the classroom, but they also let you learn about yourself, what you enjoy. And it shows the employer that you're actually interested and you enjoy this stuff. You're not doing it just because of it's you know, to get a good grade in the classroom.
Yes, 100%. It shows you what you like and don't like. It shows their employer that you like to do these things, and you can speak on them with more passion.
Yeah. And speaking about majoring in computer science, we have another comp-sci major, Hussein. Hussein, you studied computer science for your bachelor's and master's, but in your career, you are working with Goldman Sachs and now with the GFH. So how would you translate that step from comp-sci major to going into the consulting and banking industry?
It took a long time. So when I joined, I really joined the technology organization within Goldman Sachs, which is a huge organization, and they have big projects, and they need and do try to attract, top of the class computer scientists, who then grow within the company and become architects and put together sophisticated systems for them. So I mean, even when I applied, I also applied to technology companies, and then I did want to join a large organization to get that kind of exposure and learn from lots of get different varied experiences within the same company. But yeah, I joined a technology organization embedded within a business, and gradually I became familiar with the business, got interested in it, and started to want to drive the decision making and not just develop the systems. Okay, I've had a lot of fun doing that. Now I want to actually make the investment decisions, and to take up that role. So I did some studies. I did some reading. I did some studies on the side. I got a qualification. Even went back to uni, did some courses. Then an opportunity came at BlackRock where they needed a proficient computer scientist who was also interested in investing, because it was a hybrid role. You were basically doing quantitative investments. So you invest in the stock market, but using a program, as opposed to, very detailed economic analysis of individual companies. So that was a good fit. And that was the key point, in the conversion. Then when it came to, coming to Bahrain and becoming a treasurer, I actually spent a lot of time looking for roles in Bahrain. Obviously, it's a smaller job market. We can talk about that. But it was a question of finding a good enough fit. And in this role as a treasurer, where I'm dealing with some, structured products, derivatives, you need to know maths, but they also needed some systems to manage these products. So they value, when I explained in the interviews, and that I can build systems for you, I can build analyses and give advice on what to invest systematically. That sparked their interest, and I saw a good opportunity there.
Wow, that's really interesting. How your career, even after having like a long experience in one field, you can still find that match to transition to another field. Saeed, just I want to come back to you, because the interesting point Hussein mentions is that he actually targeted to go to a big company to start his career, to get that breadth. I know you started your career in a small startup. So what was that working environment, and why did you want to go that route first before going to a big company like Google?
Yeah, that was 100% intentional to go into a startup first. I wanted, even after I graduated school, I knew the field I want to work in, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do within that field. I had a few interests in multiple places, and I wanted to locate what is it that I really liked and what is it that I thought I liked but didn't. If you go to a bigger company, it's very easy to, at least for technology, to get stuck in this one area of expertise, and this is what you do. If you go into a startup, especially an early stage one, you can sort of try multiple things within the company, within your major, and sometimes even outside of your major. They need help in any way they can because they don't have enough people yet. So that was my way of trying things out in a real work environment and seeing what I actually liked and what I didn't like. And I discovered that. I discovered what part of computer engineering I didn't really like and what parts I did. And that really helped me land the second job in a big company where the work I do is exactly what I want.
Right. So in the startup, you played different roles, taking different hats, but now in Google, you're specifically working on one project and a specific piece on that project.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to go back to Iman. Very interestingly, Iman, you've along with Hussein, have worked in two different fields. You started your career as a civil and structural engineer for 5 years. Then you switched into a career in consulting management. So how was that transition for you? And how much do you feel that your major or your college major has dictated what you do as a career?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting, and I'm just reflecting on what everyone just said, I think a lot of us do this by trial and error. And even after kind of 10, 15 years of experience, you're still trying to find what is my next move and what is my aspiration. So when I started in engineering, I knew that I liked engineering. I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to fit in it. And going through work, of course, it's exactly what everyone says. It's, it's a little bit different from school. And as I moved into a project management role, and I moved into as well business development and looking at the organization as a whole and shaping the business aspect of it, I became really interested in that part. And when I went to do my MBA, I discovered this whole area of things that I can do that are outside of engineering that could be really, really interesting. Consulting was one of them. But it was taking it one step at a time and thinking, when you're in a specific field, you start with your major and exploring things within your major itself and thinking about what are the different things that I'm interested in and trying to figure out exactly what you're interested in, what you're not. And by process of elimination, then you get to a place. But I think my advice would be not to be afraid to change and not and deviate from your initial path, because there's always going to be things that are interesting to you that you would never have thought of before. I never imagined, even in my first year of my MBA school, that I would end up in consulting, and yet here I am. I just find that it's a very interesting field that afforded me multiple opportunities to work in different industries, and I really enjoyed it. So keep an open mind and take it one step at a time.
Yeah, I think that's something that I remember myself being very concerned about, that I need to select my major right away, right now, so that I won't be changing my field of work later on, which I was thinking of as maybe something that will penalize your career or something. But on the contrary, you can switch and it can be beneficial. Like the skills you've learned and developed as a structural and engineer have probably gained you the skills to manage projects, which is what you're doing right now. And mashallah, you are at a very successful consulting management. So that's a testament that it's not a weakness if you switch your career. It's on the contrary, it builds strength and makes you unique.
Yeah, I think one reflection that I would say that I forgot to mention is always think of your skills as a pool of things that you can do and you can build on, and they're transferable across industries. They're not fixed. So when you're thinking about a different industry, think, how can I take what I learned from before into my new industry as well?
I want to ask Mahmoud before we go to the chat question. Mahmoud, you finish your bachelor's degree in economics, then you start working for several years, and then you decided to go back to get your master's. What are your thoughts on getting your master's degree right after undergraduate degree versus working first?
Hey, that's a very important question, Ahmed. And I think a lot of people think about that either from the beginning, while they're still in school, or afterwards when they start getting closer to graduating, maybe year 3, year 4. And there's no one answer to give, but there are some criteria that you can think about. So you can think about your field. Is it important? Is it relevant to get a master's degree straight away? Or can you start working without one? So my recommendation for everyone here is to, once you know what you'll be studying, to understand the requirements of the market. Because there is a phrase that I hear a lot in Bahrain from HR about people sometimes being overqualified for a starter role, for a new joiner. So if you go to university, you get all the degrees, you get your bachelor's, master's, that's great, but what is the return for you? The other point is also how useful will not useful, but how much you'll get out of your master's if you do it straight away or if you do it afterwards. So to be a bit clearer, if you come back or work anywhere and then you go back to university, you'll be able to bring with you experience, projects, examples, and your master's will be more productive, more beneficial for you. You'll understand more what's going on. If there's a thesis at the end of it, you will have a clear idea about what you want to write about, rather than just going off of your academic interests. You will actually have maybe a real life project that you want to work on. And maybe you'll have a transferable project. So maybe you'll work a bit in a company or organization, and then when you go do your master's, you will be in direct communication with your boss, let's say if you want to go back to that same company, and you'll do your thesis, your project on something that will immediately benefit your work, your department, your company, organization. So I would say, and this is something that I think you'll hear a lot in this panel, do as much research as you can. Really ask people who are studying, ask people who are working, ask people who are working in private sector, public, in Bahrain, outside of Bahrain. Really try to learn as much as you can about the field. But at the same time, with this advice, I want to give another advice, which is don't stress too much and worry about making the correct, precise, 100% accurate choice, because it doesn't exist. You'll have to experiment a bit. And as you can see with all the panelists here, there's always a bit of, moving around, changing, whether it's fields, whether it's your work, that kind of stuff. I think that's a theme that you'll see across when you talk to different people. And sometimes you don't see it that way when you're still in school. But when you talk to people who have been there, done that, they'll tell you there is really no clear path. You just have to experiment a bit and see what happens.
And I totally agree. And we see the example of taking the master's degree right after your undergrad or not. A lot of things can play a part in that.
Sure.
Before we move to the next section, I just want to share one thing. For me, for example, I did my master's right after my undergraduate, and I decided to do that because during my undergraduate degree, I was involved in research, and I wanted to graduate with a master's thesis. And so for me, that was the right opportunity and fit to continue doing my master's. And Saeed, you did a similar thing. If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an electrical and computer engineer, the program at Duke University is more geared toward software engineers in a way that their graduates are expected to go work as a software engineers in companies. I knew I wanted to work with devices, and that sort of links to the last question you asked. I knew I wanted to work on devices, and those devices could be robots, or it could be phones, or it could be watches, anything really. And doing my master's at the time, right after my undergrad, was my way of specializing to write software engineering for devices. So I would say it was really important for me to do it at the time to direct my career in the right path. That to me is something I've discovered late in my undergrad, and my 1-year supplement with my master's helped me kind of focus in there and have more to show the employer when I applied for a job.
All right, so I think it's a good time to move to the next section, working in Bahrain and abroad. I want to start this section by asking Ilham, you started your career as a health consultant in New York in different projects. How valuable was that experience for you to start your own company later on? And yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely valuable. I worked ever since I was 13 years old, if anybody wants to know that fun fact. And so I decided when I did my master's to take so many different types of consulting opportunities and gigs. And we can talk a little bit more later about, visa restrictions on that. And it helped me focus on how to make an impact in working with the government, especially the federal government, on really important big projects in digital health technology, and how do you help different citizens in accessing the best healthcare. And so I've taken that opportunity, and it helped me inform me about different potential partnership opportunities when I started my consulting company 8 years ago. And I started my consulting firm when I was actually in undergraduate school, and accumulated so many different types of clients because of my internships. I was introduced to so many different types of employers who really liked my work, hardworking, proactive, make sure that I show them a return on investment by hiring me. And by working with the federal government during my internships and consultancy during my master's, it showed them that I was able to bring so much to the table from a different perspective as a global citizen. And that actually trickled to so many different other clients I was introduced. I worked with various types of startups, which is what I was hired to do back 2 years ago. I was hired by another startup here in Los Angeles, and they flew me in, and I worked with them for a really short project. And that just continued to trickle down, because the public health field, if you're interested in healthcare, especially in the United States and abroad, is a very niche market. You have to be very good about what you offer in terms of your expertise in the global economy in order to stand out as a subject matter expert. And that's how I decided to use these internship opportunities in school. And I've done them the summer, the winter, the fall. I worked as much as I can as a workaholic. And there's a funny saying for people who start their own consulting firms is that we're afraid of commitment. And that's probably true for me. But I absolutely enjoyed it. I'll be happy to answer other questions on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's very impressive that you started while you're still an undergraduate. I think that sets the bar for everyone else here. Ilham, for me personally, I feel like it's not the easiest choice to say that I will start my own firm. I will work for myself instead of being employed by a big company. So what motivated you or inspired you to take that decision?
Yeah, it's a very common question, especially for those of you who are interested in starting your own businesses and consultancy. For me, it wasn't it wasn't hard, mainly because I grew up with my family. We were very motivated in terms of being independent and having that freedom. And that was my motivation, having the freedom to be able to serve so many different types of people without any restrictions on who my employer was. And I have no filter when it comes to my work ethic. I say what's on my mind. And so having different types of clients helped me do that. But the other part of it was, what's your risk tolerance and your bravery and courage level? And for me, one of the things that I love about my mom is I was raised to have an entrepreneur mindset. I grew up seeing my mom create her own businesses and to take risk, not to be afraid of what people say about you or what types of opportunities that bring courage. So I've made some difficult decisions. When I graduated from my master's, I was actually offered 3 jobs here in New York and Washington, D.C. And these are pretty high-powered jobs in policy, working public health in Africa. But I decided not to take them, mainly because I knew by taking them, I'd be restricting the scope of my work to just one field. And I was just really, really in love with the idea of working in many areas, whether I worked with tech companies on their strategy, I worked with different types of government partners. Right now, I work in COVID-19 to help with finding vaccines in terms of using plasma and the antibodies and working on those campaigns. I wouldn't have that opportunity if I didn't broaden my perspective. So take a risk and leap, and take a faith of leap into bravery.
Yeah, mashallah, great advice. And I saw in your website the variety of projects that you've been involved in. You mentioned HIV. I think there was a woman in the workplace feeding their child. Also the food industry. Now I want to go and actually shift and ask Hussein about his experience of working in the UK for 13 years before coming to Bahrain. How was that transition like for you? Were there some aspects that came off as surprising to you? Were you shocked by the work culture here in Bahrain? And how would you compare the two cultures of working in the UK and Bahrain?
Yes, there was a shock, but I got over it very quickly. I mean, I'm Bahraini after all. But there are things that are a bit kind of more not really serious. Like you make your own tea. Yeah, they bring you the tea. So that's not really work culture, but it's kind of workplace culture. And in terms of work, it's different type of work, and that is the biggest difference. So in London, there was a lot of product, development. You make the product, you make the investment product. When I was in technology, you make the software, and on the investment side, you actually devise the investment fund or derivative. You design it. Here, you don't have enough people, enough qualified people, and the infrastructure and the expertise to do all of that. So what you tend to do is buy it from these hubs in London, New York, and so there's more focus on here maybe raising funds, relationship management, what to invest in it at a kind of at an aggregate level, not making your own stuff, but what can I buy from all these products that are available to me from banks in London, New York, etc.
Right. So the difference is not only in the work environment and the people around you, but you're saying the job, what they're doing is also different. Like in the UK, they will build their own software and they have their own people developing that, while here
Yes.
he is more often buying an existing software and overview management of it?
Yes, as well as you know, you spend a lot of time dealing with your clients, you know, raising money from your clients in order to invest in those products that are being developed somewhere else. And so lots of,
That's actually
relation.
interesting, even in a different industry. So for me, I work in a refinery, and I also see a similar trend of obviously we don't develop any of the technologies that we use in the refinery ourselves. It's mostly purchased from outside. And also the interesting thing that I found here is that the services, the studies are most of them are being done by external entities instead of the refinery itself, which is not necessarily the practice in abroad.
Yes, so here, different kind of a mix of skills becomes valuable. So I would say leadership, very important, obviously, but also, relationship management, having having connections is very important, because you don't necessarily have the infrastructure to go and seek out the opportunities, and aggregate all the opportunities and search through them. You have to go and speak to people, different people, and make connections and so on.
Right. So we often hear here in Bahrain the word connection, or sometimes we like wasta, and in getting a job or building relationships, and it's all often thought of as this negative thing. But actually, building the right network and connecting with people is hard work. Is not something that just comes to you, and it can really show employers your outgoing personality. So I just want to ask Mahmoud and then Saeed, if you guys can talk about how did your network and connection help you in finding opportunities when you're looking in the job market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very important point, and it's something that you should work on strongly. And you can work on it in different levels. So you can even work on it in university. You'll have people who are going to go into similar careers as you. So it's good to stay in touch with them. They might work, obviously, in university. If you're studying abroad, they'll work all over the world. But you might be interested in region that they're working in. So they might come to the GCC region. You might want to work in the US or UK or غيرها. But it's always good to keep that connection. And I'd say in Bahrain as well. So starting with the EDB, I'm still in touch with a lot of people that I worked with over there. And it opens doors for me. First of all, personally in my career, if I want to move somewhere else and they moved to an organization that I'm interested in, I can pick up the phone, call them, text them, ask them what work is like over there. And then even work-wise, if I'm working on a project and they are the relevant contact person, it already makes my life much easier. I can work with them, communicate with them easier. So it's always good to keep that professional circle with you. If you can even build that from school, that would be great. I would recommend, the people here in the audience to stay in touch with people that are with you. They will go on to workplaces that you might want to join or collaborate with. So it's always important to keep that connection. One of the difficult things to do is to stay in touch with people that you are connected with in school. So a lot of people, and I'm one of those examples, that you go off to university, you start being so engaged in that circle, you start to lose touch a bit with the people who you were in touch with from school, and then you go on to work. It's easier to lose touch of people who you were in touch with in university. So it's good to actively trying to keep that connection with people, even if and it's so easy right now, with LinkedIn. with social media, just to every now and then have a quick chat conversation with someone, ask them what they're up to, what kind of projects they're doing, update them on what you're doing. You might have something in common that you can work with in the future. But I have to say that it really takes a lot of effort, and you have to be self-motivated to do this. It doesn't come naturally, because it's very easy to get lost in your own work, and just to lose that connection. So I would say it's good to actively try to every now and then connect with people from your school, university, work, and just have a quick chat with them. And it's become even more common now with the coronavirus. People are just asking, let's have a quick Zoom call, or have a quick video call, etc. So I'd recommend people to make sure they keep that in mind.
Yeah, and Saeed, I remember, like Mahmoud mentioned, I remember when we were applying to jobs in the US, maybe 4 years ago now. We were in the process. You showed me this Excel sheet of tracking all your job applications. Have you made a cover letter? Was it submitted? The people you talked to, you found people on LinkedIn, you inbox messaged them. How many replied? Did you meet personally with them? So can you talk about how much that process helped you in finding or having a successful application at the end?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of dumping what's in my brain somewhere else, so that I don't have to store it there anymore or remember it. This is why I tend to have a lot of documents or Excel sheets that kind of keep track of these things for me. And the specific Excel sheet that you're talking about is when I was applying for jobs, finding the right job in the US is not easy, because there are a lot of options and you're really trying to find what you want. And the second thing is, like Bardouri and Mahmoud mentioned, network matters. There are a lot of companies you can apply online and you will get a chance by getting an interview. But if you know someone in the company and they refer you, you basically go through the expressway, where you're like automatically have an interview, probably skip a few steps at the beginning. So knowing someone, whether you went to school with them or you don't even know them, can surprisingly speed up a lot of your applications. So I had this Excel sheet that basically listed all the companies that I thought might be interested. I might be interesting, I might be interested in. And then I sort of ranked them 1 to 4 or something like that, that says, these are my top choices, these are okay, and I will ignore a couple other ones that I don't want to work in. And for each of the ones that I wanted to work in, I would either go on LinkedIn or look around my friends and see who I know works there. Ideally, a first connection that works there. If not, maybe a family member or a friend of a friend. And if nothing at all, at all desperation, I would just go to LinkedIn, look at a few profiles in the company, and what they called cold email. I would just send them a message, hey, I'm this random person, and I'm interested to chat if you want to. And in that same Excel sheet, it also, I put some information about where in the process I am. Did I hear back from the company? Did I hear back from my network? Did I get an interview? Was I ignored? What the deal is. And that really helped me shape where my chances lie. And I knew where I stood in every company that I was interested in. And while maybe the companies in the US are in the hundreds or not the thousands, I really limited it to certain locations, certain industries, certain places. So I ended up with less than 20. So I thought that was really helpful in kind of seeing everything clearly in front of me of where I stand, and B, knowing how I can best kind of get the expressway to an interview in the companies, what is working and what is clearly not working.
Right. So you had enough data to conclude by yourself what's going well and what's not going well. That's very important to always get that data and learn and improve on your process in whatever you're doing, really. Before I move to the final section, the advice, I just have one question for Ilham and one for Iman. I'll start with Iman. Iman, how is working in consulting management? And big consulting firms are known for long hours, frequent travels. You're staying in hotels for most of the week. And so I wanted to ask you, why did you choose consulting? And has this experience of working in different projects in different cities been helpful, and how so?
There were multiple factors that led me to consulting. One was I wanted to work in different industries that frankly had nothing to do with each other. I liked infrastructure. I also liked entertainment, which is what I ended up working on during my MBA. And I thought it would be a really good idea to work for a consulting firm where I would be able to switch industries as quickly as possible and be able to be exposed to everything that I would be interested in as I'm trying to find my way. I also knew that I wanted to be based in Bahrain. I wanted to come back. I wanted to be with the family, but I also wanted the best of both worlds. So I wanted to travel and I wanted to do international projects, but I also wanted to, at the end of the day, come back and be with the family. And I've done that before with my engineering work, where I would fly back and forth between Bahrain and other countries in the GCC. And this was kind of an extension of that. So yes, it's not the easiest lifestyle, but also it gives me the career exposure that I'm looking for in terms of the different opportunities that are available around the region. But also at the end of the day, come Thursday, Friday, I'm with the family and I spend time with the people that I care about, and that's how I made the decision.
That I had a similar thoughts when I've always wanted to come back and work in Bahrain. So I mean, I thought the opportunity was good for me to start my career here, and so I did that because I knew that at the end of the day I want to come back and settle here. And in my industry, especially, the years of experience really counts for your progression. So for me, it was better to start where I wanted to basically stay in. And interestingly, I'm looking at the poll results of what the audience was most interested in. And it seems as like working abroad. So I just have one final question here before we move to the second section. Ilham, I mean, working in the US and when you're not a US citizen, requires a lot of visa restrictions. Can you touch on what are those restrictions and the extent of difficulty that you went through? And then maybe Saeed, you can also comment on that.
Yeah, sure. My situation was pretty unique, and I think Saeed's situation is unique too, in the sense where when I graduated from my master's, I was actually offered full-time jobs for one with an academic institution. In the United States, if you get employment or an offer with an academic institution like Columbia, Harvard, or anything that's research focused, it's easy to get your H-1B visa, which is your work visa, which automatically, hopefully, you get in the long term your green card. And so that was my situation, in which, because of my field is a very unique specialty in HIV, informatics, and public health, that's what I was recruited for. But the other part is I was recruited for a health tech company in Los Angeles, and that was because I have specialized skill sets as a chief technology officer in the public health field. And so the navigation was also through an H-1B visa that I was sponsored with at that time. And it was a pretty streamlined process. It's getting more and more complex because of the Trump administration that you have to be very aware of. And so there are a few questions you have to think about if you want to work here in the United States. If you're in a specialized field like me in public health, what are the funding from the governments that you need to start thinking about? My field, unfortunately, in the past 2 years, the government has slashed funding. So that means you can't work for certain companies if you're an international student, exchange student coming from certain countries, or just like abroad in general. The other question you have to think about is what is your competitive advantage in terms of your specialty when you're going to certain fields. For example, in health tech, my competitive advantage is I have not only a master's degree, but also I have really specialized certifications that allow me to provide consulting work at a higher level. So it makes me a desired worker. So those are certain questions you have to think about. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. You have to pay a lot of taxes and you have to know how to negotiate with your employer, because when somebody offers you a job here in the United States as an international student, they are making a risk by paying for their lawyer fees to hire you and also pay the visa fees and just to hire you. So you have to show that you have these skill sets nobody else either has, or that you're so good at those skill sets that everybody wants to hire you because of what you do.
Saeed?
I'm sorry, I was answering a chat question and I missed
No
you.
worries. Yeah, I just to follow up with Ilham. I totally agree. I found that in my major, chemical engineering, finding a job in a refinery, for example, over there was very, very difficult. But in other industries, more like private, small ones, startups in like liquor store, like beer manufacturing, or like brewery, and in other industries like pharma, small pharma companies, then those opportunities were more available. So the smaller markets, I thought, in my opinion, they were more able to take international students than the big ones. I think it goes a lot of it because it goes down to the big companies already have structured programs that they develop whoever the incoming people in. And so they're not taking you unless you, like you mentioned, you're very special in your field and you have a PhD degree of some kind. Yeah, Said?
Sorry.
Yeah, so when you were applying to, you started after you earned your master's degree, you have an expertise in that field that help you and get your job at Google, for example. If you went away right from undergrad, how would you think your chances compare? I mean, you can still do it from undergrad. I know a colleague of mine did it, but if you can comment on that.
Yeah, the application process is really more or less the same. Your experience, so the role you apply to will be different. The level that you will join at will be different, but the interview process is the same. For new grads versus people with 1, 2, or many years of experience, the only difference is really getting an interview to the role. It's easier the more years of experience you have, and it's harder if you are a new grad. But big companies like Google have a program to hire however many new grads every year. So really, it's all about doing your homework in advance. If you can land an interview, you can get it regardless of what stage you are. One joke that one of my professors liked to share about Google, he had a friend that was a professor in computer science, and that friend wanted to move from academia to work at Google at some point. And when he applied to Google, they actually gave him a coding challenge to kind of show his coding skills before the interview, which he thought was ironic because this person is a professor in computer science. But when you go apply to Google, they see everybody the same. Can you code or can you not code before we actually move on to the next step? So yeah, as long as you have the requirements to land an interview, the process is the same.
Yeah, but one of those requirements to get your OTP is to be in a certain degree, right? In a certain...
Yes, with regards to legal immigration stuff, you do need to be working in a related major to your field.
Yeah,
at least in the US.
Yeah, and now I just want to move to the last section so that we finish on time. So the advice, I want to start with Hussein. What should the mindset of the audience be if they want to reach their professional goals? Like how would
in general?
you balance between work, life, and your career growth? It's a tough one, I know.
I know. I did not really have much of a balance in the first few years, and then I started a family, so I had to make a balance. But I think in the workplaces I've been, most of them, if you know, if you're dedicated, you think of what you're doing, you take full ownership, and they feel that you have the right. Actually, you think, you treat it as your own stuff. So if you're handling, people's money, you treat it as if it is your own money. Then I think it's more about work ethic than spending loads of hours at the office. And also, something I have tried to do and has helped me massively is always keep learning on the side within the field, to develop yourself professionally. So whether I was as programming, keep learning about new technologies, or later on learn about investment products. Another thing is, I think it's helpful to think about the next step, because you don't know when the opportunity might come. So keep networking. Think about what can I do next. I was going through these chat forums, and someone said, "Oh, I've started this new job. It's I've changed career. I've started this new job just now. What do you think the next step's gonna be?" I'm like, "Oh my God, you just started. Just settle in." But some people are like that, and I think there's merit to it. So keep thinking about the next step and building up your skills, connections, technical, soft skills, whatever, in order to reach that when the time and the opportunity comes.
Hussein, I mean, I think of myself just starting my career. I have 2 years experience right now. So starting my career, if you can specifically tell me about the structure of your day. You mentioned that you want to keep learning on the side. So let's say your working hours from 7 to 4 or 5. Then after the working hours, you would spend another hour like learning. And what kind of learning resources would you recommend?
Okay, I've tried different ways over the years of learning on the side. One method that is a bit brutal is to sign up to an examination which has a deadline, and then it just forces you to rearrange everything. So I did that, and it worked, but it half killed me, but it worked. I was spending my weekends waking up really early and so on. The other more balanced approach that I was able to do later in life, maybe I don't know, maybe I matured or something. I just became more organized, basically. I just wake up early, do a couple of hours before work, and then make sure you know, don't stay up. I sleep early so I can wake up early, do my thing when I'm still fresh, and then, you know.
And for you to do that, how important, did you have any mentors doing that, or were you doing that all by yourself?
I did say when I did mentors, the mentors were at my workplaces, like say senior engineer with the new software engineer, you know. I do, but soon after, maybe after, since I graduated from uni, it's been around 15 years. Soon after, I stopped taking classes. I just like to read by myself and watch, you know, videos. I've bought video classes. I'd rather watch the lecture than go to a class. But if you're talking about one-to-one mentoring, it's extremely valuable, but also, you know, difficult to find a good mentor.
Right.
At the workplace, it's easier because they're interested, you know, it's part of, it can be part of someone's job to coach you and to teach you how to do something. But if you're trying to do something just for yourself, that's not directly related to the job, I have found it difficult to find a mentor. So I just do I do self-learning.
Right. And I think you can do that more later on in your career when you realize what you want and you know how to do it. Like you said, you matured and you got more organized. I want to ask Iman about her thoughts actually on this. So what's your mindset and for people starting their career in order for them to reach their professional goals? What does it take?
I think when you're starting, you start with, everyone starts almost the same, regardless of where you are, right? There are, you know, what, 1 million graduates every year. You're starting all at the same, more or less, playing field, right? Kind of with different universities ranking differently, probably in preference. But I think what really matters later on in your work is your mindset and how you approach learning. I think what's really, really important is that you keep a growth mindset at all times. That you make sure that you are a person that people like to work with. They enjoy working. They enjoy seeing you every day. They have fun working with you. Sometimes they have tough days working with you, but at the end of the day, you deliver, and you deliver on your commitment as well. And a growth mindset also would help you later on, because you will keep, whether you do what Hussein does, which is kind of learn on the side, or within your own job, and really take whatever someone is giving to you and push it as far as you possibly can. And not just accept that someone handed me a piece of work and I should do that and clock out and that's it. That shouldn't be the kind of work that you're looking for. You're looking for something that challenges you. And even if someone does give you a piece of work that you're not entirely happy with, or it's something that you feel like is menial, think about, how is it that I can make this small job meaningful? What does it mean to the entire organization that I work for? And one thing that have helped me in my career is that to think always in terms of the organization itself, not just me, Iman, in my own development and how I'm going to, work harder. Yes, I want to grow, but I also want the organization that I'm a part of to grow. And you then have a sense of belonging within the organization that you go into.
Right.
And it doesn't become a job that you go through.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Iman. I think it's very important to keep that into perspective. And before I end the session, I really want to get I want to ask Ilham and Mahmoud of any advice they have for current students in the CPISP program, in the candidacy program, because that's what most of our audience consists of. So if you have any final advice, please try to make it a minute so that we can finish on time.
For sure, Ahmed. I'll start off real quick, and I'll say for the current students, don't be afraid to ask any questions. Anything that's unclear, reach out to people, whether it's us or people who are currently students or people who have just gotten the scholarship. There's always a lot of things that might be unclear about how to go about university applications, choosing a career, choosing your major, even choosing where to study. Is this country more suitable for you? Is this city or state? Is this kind of campus more suitable for you? There are a lot of questions. The more you ask people, the easier you make life for yourself. And at the same time, use whatever things that are out there. Google things, search for on YouTube about the university, about the kind of career. So utilize the tools that are in your hand online, and ask people as many questions as you can.
No?
My quick 1 minute advice is your career is a marathon, not a sprint. And so what that means is that it's okay to change your mind multiple times, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed and not know where you are in life. But one of the most important things is to build not necessarily a network, but a support system to help you thrive emotionally, psychologically, but also so that you have people that you can lean onto when you're feeling down. And I know COVID-19 is a very difficult time for you to graduate from. And so having that support network keeps you a little bit sane and helps you survive during this time. So don't forget about your mental health as well as, your success in your career.
Yeah, thank you, Ilham. And at the end, I want to thank our panel speakers for taking the time to be with us today. I have learned a lot about the pros, the cons of working in Bahrain and abroad, the mindset to have as a young professional, as well as working in different industries, as we see our panel speakers from. Yes, this may be the end of the mentoring panel sessions to you, but this is not the end of reaching out to someone or the end of you, the listeners, to give back what you learn over the years to the younger generation. So from all of us, the organizing team of the mentoring program, we hope you have benefited from the program. And remember that we are always here for you in case you need our help. You have our email addresses, and please feel free to send us an email anytime if you have any questions, or if we can help you in any way, we will make sure to help you. So with that, I would like to end the session, and thank you, Saeed, Mahmoud, Ilham, Hussein, and Iman. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.